Now, these are quite a trendy band, aren't they? I mean, they're not on my iPod with Grace Jones and Madonna, but British Sea Power are an indie band. They did very, very well. I think they were up for a Mercury Award. They got Brit Awards. What are they up to?
Well, do you know what? I hadn't actually heard of them, so I'm not sure what that says about my music taste, Crystal. But British Sea Power have announced that they're changing their name to simply Sea Power because they want to, and I quote, they want to distance themselves or separate themselves from the recent wave of crass nationalism. Now, they've been putting out albums, as you say, for almost 2 decades under that, and I can hear gasp after gasp from listeners, Crystal, thinking, well, I haven't heard of them. But, I think ultimately this band that has said that they don't want to be associated with isolationist, antagonistic nationalism have basically... I'm not sure what they thought that the original name was doing. I'm flabbergasted by this. The original name in my head sort of provokes images of, I don't know, the British beating the Spanish Armada or the Napoleonic Wars.
British Sea Power used to be an advertising campaign, I think, from the 60s and 70s, and I think it used to be on merchandise showing that we were brilliant at sort of transporting things by sea.
Right, yes.
But I mean, I think actually now, I think there's logic in that, and I'm looking forward to going on a holiday on Airways.
Yeah, well, there we are.
Yeah.
But they said that they want to do something. They wanted to make clear that their songs are an anthem to pan-European idealism with one song. Now, Crystal, you know more about that sort of thing than me, but I'm just really confused as to how a band called British Sea Power was ever supposed to be sort of Jean-Claude Juncker on stilts. It doesn't make sense to me. I think they've got a real PR and branding strategy error that has gone on throughout their career.
I'll have to ask. We're going to a lovely party at Guy Verhofstadt's house where we're going to be dancing around the EU flag. So I'll ask them when I'm there. All right.
There we are.
I'll let you know what they say. Okay, let's move on because Team GB now. Obviously, Team GB, we did very well, ladies and gentlemen. Did you know that we came 4th in the medal table? I mean, there surely can't be anything negative to be said about that, can there?
Of course, there's not anything negative to be said about that. It's a brilliant. And watching Tom Daley and all the rest of it, it was fantastic to see and really, I guess, galvanise the nation.
But... Oh, hang on. Sorry. No, Team GB's racist. Did you not know? Did you get the memo, Darren? Team GB is actually racist. We came 4th in the medal table, but it's yet another thing on the list of things that are now racist. Explain.
The Guardian, of course, are running this, basically waxing lyrical about this, putting it anywhere and everywhere, because there's been an argument made by a Sport England board member that Team GB are still too white. Now, this is Chris Grant, who says Team GB isn't representative of the diversity of Great Britain. Now, in the past, Crystal, I think it's important to say he's previously spoken about structural racism in British sport. Now, I think if you've been watching the Euros, for example, just this summer, and you've seen that all of the players out there doing fantastically well and all the rest of it, you wouldn't assume that there was structural racism evident throughout English sport, right, or British sport. And he actually described it as, the Guardian report, he says, an evidence of apartheid in British sport. And you think, oh, come on. I mean, come on. That is not evident at all. That is not fair. It's not a justifiable response whatsoever. And I'm sorry, but back in my day, Crystal, right, it didn't matter. There was this novel idea that you didn't need to represent all colours of the rainbow, right? All that mattered was whether that be sexuality, gender identity, skin colour, and all the rest of it. All that mattered was that you had Olympic standard abilities to compete in a particular sport, and you'd be supported by the support networks and all the rest of it. Hunky-dory, happy days.
Do you know what I find so frustrating about these stories is that it's like the curry story from yesterday. I don't know if you saw that one.
Yeah.
But actually, it's usually, and I'm sure you'd agree with this, there's usually a grain of a good point in it, in as much as if he's making the point that, look, actually, there are working class people who or in poorer areas that aren't getting very many sporting opportunities. No one's going to argue with that.
No, because Christo, it goes back to the point you just made there, doesn't it, earlier, about the fact that there's a sort of snobbery and there's a contempt, I guess, for some working class kids.
And if that is the point you want to make, absolutely great. If you want to make the point we should appreciate other foods other than curries, that's a perfectly good point to make. It's the fact that it's immediately racist. It's not we should be thinking about more working class people entering sport. It's you're racist for not thinking about that. And that's the problem.
There's this tendency to say, all right, Team GB's done well, but you're all racist. This is a racist, horrible country, and it's good for nothing. You know, I'm all for meritocracy, basically, Christo. That's ultimately, I think, what the British position is. Most British people believe in fairness and equity and equality, but not placing identity first and basically being obsessed with having talent as a slight aside when it should be the most important thing on the agenda, because you're more fussed, you're more bothered with approving somebody based on their immutable characteristics. This identity politics stuff is corrosive, and I'm afraid it's corroding the sort of faith and trust that many of these elite sports people have in their own country, for goodness sake.
Well, I think maybe it would be easier if you come on next time and just list the things that aren't racist.